sinking like a ship. Trouble on your lips, murder in your song. Song of a mean man, lovers come and gone. Why not make my anger go away? Try hard to make my money last a day. No way. Try hard to keep away the pain, stop the rain. Try hard to fly 1,000 miles away. But people, they don't really stress my heart. I'm the key to the prison. I'll call on the angels to hold my hand softly. They'll always remember. This poem is called After Dark. I've had them all in here. Sinatra said to me, he said, Jack, Jack, it's like this. The biggest tip. Real stars, real. They don't make them like that no more. No, sir, nope. The taxi driver goes on and on and on and on, misses my stop, and glides into the park. After dark. Johnny Carson, mean mother, gave me no tip at all, with all his money, man. But Garland, she was a real star. Real. They don't make them like that no more. No, sir, nope. After dark, at midnight, it's a full moon, and the stars are out, like we never used to see them. Maybe he sees the sweat on my brow. Yeah, she was great, I say. Can we go now? I'm not a negative, pessimistic person, you know, so everything I see is like black and gloomy. There's also an awful lot of humour in the poems as well. I think, you know, there's moments of pessimism sort of contrasted with, you know, with sort of moments of humour. I think you'll find that all the way through it. Maybe the latter poems maybe get a little serious, but...
Well, actually, you talk about the humour, the one in the After Dark one, which is sort of the taxi driver one, I suppose you can describe it as.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, I've been to New York and I seem to have experienced
the way they talk and they don't stop talking and they go on and they tell you about who they've had in their taxis and who they've had. And this particular one written about one night. I was I was coming home from somewhere in a taxi, and the taxi driver, without any explanation, took a turn into Central Park, and it was in the middle of the night, and he just drove round and round in Central Park, and I was getting very, very worried, of course, as one would be in this sort of situation, you know. And he just sort of drove around Central Park, sort of talking incessantly about different people he'd had in his cab, and I thought, oh, God.
How much is it fare?
Yes. I just want to pay and get out. I actually have a stockpile of material and poems that I've been writing for many years before I started fashioning sort of words into songs, and working with David Ball. I used to sort of do the type of shows where I used to recite sort of poetry or more of a dialogue type of thing, and then they gradually turned more into songs. And I think it was gaining confidence, I think, to actually release anything in a book form. You know, I know there's always this stigma attached to people who sing, or people who are in music or in pop music or whatever, bringing out books of poems. You know, people tend to go, oh my God, you know, no. So I think it was just gaining the confidence, and having so much stuff that I'd stockpiled, and over the years, I just wanted to look through them and select a few of the things that I quite liked, or that showed a development in what I'd been writing, and that went together in a type of a theme as well that was maybe relevant for now.
But what can you express in a poem that you couldn't express in your lyrics before then? I mean, what's the...
Well, I think the two tend to sort of overlap anyway, really. I mean, a lot of the songs that I write are very, you know, they could be seen as maybe poetical or whatever. I think, though, you know, sometimes I think maybe you're a bit more restricted by a song, you're a bit more restricted by a tune, as it were. And I do tend to sometimes,
two separate types of styles of writing. I write for a song sometimes, particularly for a song that would, that will sort of fit into a rhythm, or and other things, will work better as I can express better in poems. I can sort of, be a bit more indulgent, I suppose.
You mentioned the themes and probably being indulgent at the same time. But what have the themes been in this book?
In this book, I think it's like it is a type of, I suppose, an elegy to the past, to the, I suppose, the end of the 70s, the beginning of the 80s, and the I suppose the change in morality coming with things like AIDS, and now we have the sort of nefarious Clause 28 thing, and it's a rather disgusting little, potentially very dangerous clause. It's meant to sort of curb the promotion of homosexuality, and I think they say, though, how anybody can promote homosexuality is beyond me. I think you need Saatchi, even Saatchi and Saatchi couldn't promote homosexuality in a world that's very much geared towards heterosexuality.
You already mentioned sort of the AIDS-induced morality that has come in the last 5 to 8 years.
And that's the worst, much worse disease, or as bad a disease as AIDS, should I say. And that is the sort of horrible creeping conservatism that sort of, as well, sort of, both of maybe one is, I don't know, they've both come hand in hand. And just like sort of AIDS will probably take maybe 10, 20 years to find a cure for, well, it'll take a good 10, 20 years to also find a cure for this conservatism that seems to be infecting everything. Well, most of the things in the book are not really sort of fantasies. They're mostly things from personal experience. I'm not just a voyeur, I'm a participator. And, I am a voyeur as well, of course, but I'm very much a participator, or have been a participator in the things that I write about from my experience. I'm terribly jaded, really, though. I could sort of go on about the things that sort of, obviously, I suppose you want sort of sexual, things that sort of sexually interest me or whatever, but I'm desperately trying to think, is there anything left,